Okay, we're recording. 3. Avoid legal snags by telling people they're being recorded. You are being recorded. All right, 3, 2, 1. Hey, everyone. Welcome into the MJR podcast family. We have a group effort here today across our MJR podcast family platform. We have Will Winfield from the DAB podcast. Will, how are you today?
Not too bad. Yourself?
I'm doing well. We have our host of the Meetup with MeLa podcast. We have Melissa. How are you, Melissa?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Awesome. We have Gabe Bryant, a guest of our show. Gabe, what's going on, man? How you feeling?
Good. I'm doing all right. How are you guys?
Doing good. I got to ask you, is that orange or yellow?
This is yellow. Does it show up orange?
I don't know. I was asking. I don't know. The hat kind of looked orange, but the sweater looks yellow. I don't know.
there's everything's supposed to be yellow except for the actual symbol on the chest.
I like it. And then we have our 2 very special guests. Number 1, we have our resident Last Dance Michael Jordan expert. We have Eric Herb. Eric, what's up, man?
Hey, Mike. Glad you could have me back.
I'm glad to have you back. Without your camera. It's awesome. And then we have one of the original hosts of the Studs podcast, where it all started almost a year ago, back in the office. We got Keith. Keith, what's going on, man? Welcome back. And we can't hear him. All right. Well, Keith, whenever you want to join us, man, you can let us know. Today, we are talking about, obviously, coming up on the 1-year anniversary of all the lives lost in that helicopter crash last year, including Kobe Bryant and his daughter, Gianna. Mm-hmm. Last year, I think we can all say there were some positive things. There were still a lot of positives, a lot of negatives for sure. But I think in retrospect, we can all say it wasn't the year we wanted. It definitely was not an overall great year. And to think it's already been a year since Kobe Bryant died, and everything that's happened since is it feels like it was 10 years ago. That's how bad last year was. And, January 26th came, and you would have never thought after this happened that the year could have gotten any worse. And it was definitely a horrific day, and we're here to share our experience about the news and just about Kobe and his family and all the families that were in that crash and all the lives that were lost that day. So obviously, I mean, this is no shocker. I would like to start with Will. Will is the Lakers fan here, and he's more in tune with him and has been watching him for how long did he play? 18 years, 19 years he was a Laker?
Yeah, 18.
So, Will, when, where, how? Let us know.
Yeah, first off, thanks for having us. I know that's what Kobe does. I mean, you're a diehard Celtics fan, but just Kobe just shows that it transcended just basketball, transcended the rivalry. But I always tell the story that when I first found out, my friend in LA texted me, and he's asking if it was real. And I had seen it come across my phone, but I don't trust nothing on TMZ. And I'm sitting there, I'm watching ESPN, and I'm like, if that comes across, that's the first thing popping up. And I'm on ESPN, and my phone's going crazy. And I put my phone down, and then my good friend Leela, she actually used to be a sports reporter in LA, and she called me to check on me. And I guess they were getting a little bit faster over there. And once it confirmed everything, growing up, especially as a black male in the black community, you were taught you don't cry. And my son, that's my first time I think my son's ever seen me cry like that. And I still remember I didn't know what to tell him. I couldn't put the words together. And then stories were coming up left and right. I heard the whole basketball team was there. I heard it was him, his wife, all of his daughters. Then I heard he was with Rick Fox. So the stories are coming all over. And then finally the complete story was just him and Gigi. And just being a father, I know he'd much rather have been his whole family, because I know he felt he had to feel a loss. But Bianca, Capri, Natalia, and Vanessa were going through. And it's like, it was, and then you had like some people saying like what happened in the plane or how he went down. Nobody knows. But just, I still couldn't believe he was gone. And then the first time watching a Lakers game afterwards, it wasn't Lakers basketball. I mean, it's still not the same watching it for me. And yeah, I mean, like, I got him tattooed on my arm. I'm a diehard Kobe fan. I got the Kobe stuff. I'm. When I was in the military, they called me Young Kobe, just because I would always talk, and I would have the Jordan Kobe debate all the time. But I mean, I just see his impact now, and it was just like with all the things that happened in 2020. I think he blessed us with like fathers finding a newfound way to like love and cherish their kids, because just the phrase "girl dad." I mean, he made being a girl dad popular. He made spending time with your daughter popular. You seen grown men like doing dance recitals with their daughters just to cherish every moment. He made being present even more of a thing. And like I'm with my son all the time, but even every moment we sit there and do stuff, and I mess with him sometimes. Like I'm your girl dad now. And he mess with around and we joke about stuff, and there's no replacing him. Not just the thing, but the hardest part for me is like the story about Kobe Bryant. It's not a basketball player no more. It's the man. It's the thing. The off the court stuff. It's the Mamba Academy. It's the money that he put all over in all these places. The accolades on the court, they are what they are. But just seeing the man, the father, and I think for the first time, like, the narrative of him, everyone's forgot about the incident and back in Colorado with the whole rape case. You're not talking about that no more. And it sucks that it took him losing his life to finally be honored for something other than a negative way. But, I mean, on the court, off the court, to me, he's the greatest athlete I ever seen, just for what he did for me at a time. Because growing up, man, being a Laker fan, you knew one thing. He was going to give it to you for 18 years. He went out there and balled. And he never left the team. You don't see players leave their teams. Always there, win, lose, torn Achilles, broken fingers. He just went out there and balled, and that was the Mamba way.
Absolutely. Let's go to Melissa. Melissa, when and where, how? January 26th. Take us back.
So I believe when I first heard the news, and like Will said, it was like we were hearing all bits and pieces, and once again, like you're in complete disbelief. I don't know if you guys remember, but last year this was right after so much had been going on in terms of the Australian forest fires, and that was like devastating in terms of the ecosystems and the animals and how much had been burnt. And it just seemed like it was already, I mean, for January, it was already a really tough start to 2020, and we all know how the rest of that went, unfortunately. So, and when I heard that, I was like, what? Like, I can just remember, and hearing the news, and like Will had said as well, I'm a mom. I remember Kobe being around since I was in high school or the end of high charismatic, just figure that you just think is just a constant, right? When we think of basketball, we think of greats like Kobe Bryant and the like, and just to think of like the fact that it just brings forth the fact that we're all on borrowed time, and it doesn't matter how much you contribute or how big you are, and how you just realize we're all people and we're all vulnerable to different things and situations. And as a mom, it just broke my heart on so many levels, thinking about his wife and how she was even dealing with the loss of her partner, never mind her daughter, that had so much promise. And I think, even though I have to say I like sports, but I wouldn't say I'm a sports enthusiast. I just felt like, Kobe was always just such a constant. I remember, like I said, you were just in disbelief as to like, how did this happen? Why did this happen? Who else was aboard? Feeling bad for those people as well, because, Kobe and his daughter were certainly the main people that we knew, but we realized too, those are other lives on that helicopter as well. And it was just a travesty all around. And additionally, so I had my son back in 1999, where Kobe, I think, was pretty new to the scene at that point. Was he, guys? Was he new in 1999?
Yeah, 2 years probably.
Okay, yeah. So, but I remember, like, even for him being sort of new to basketball and everything in terms of like becoming famous, and I just remember during that time, like, he was just so charismatic and so full of energy, but you realized was filled with determination and passion and things that I guess we all just want to harness onto. And so I just had such a difficult time figuring out, first off, that I was having a son, and really thought, like, I can't even picture myself with a son. I always thought I would have a daughter because it was me and my sister, and just, knew everything about girls, but was definitely a little bit nervous about welcoming a son into the world. And so went through baby books and everything, my family and I, and because I thought Kobe Bryant was such a huge inspiration to so many people, I ended up naming my son Colby, which is a little bit different, Colby. But it was definitely an inspiration to that. So when I even heard, like, that day, that he had passed away in such a tragic way, it was one of those things too that it was like, oh my gosh, like, again, I think it just pulls you back to, just the role that he's played, in sort of in a way in my life throughout the years, and especially at a time that was so pivotal to me becoming a mom, thinking about someone like Kobe Bryant just being such the great person that he was, and just someone that was so dynamic, put everything into it, like I said, passionate, everything, to tell you the truth, that I would want instilled in my son, as he grew up, especially as a Black man that, I hope found his path and was able to harness whatever he was passionate about, and was able to go and do whatever he wanted to do with it, with a smile and charisma. So that's basically my takeaways from it. And of course, it's been a travesty and a tragedy ever since. I'm sure for his family, they're having to deal with this and pivot and try to figure out how do they even move on. So certainly my prayers continue to go out to his family, friends, those who knew him closely, and even the fans that just really loved him and committed to watching him and seeing how he flourished in his career.
All right. Let's go to Gabe.
So Kobe, it was on a Tuesday, I think, that he passed away. That whole situation went down. I'm always on social media. I'm always on my Facebook and stuff like that. So, like, I was seeing them kind of slowly come in, the posts, scrolling through, and it was just like, it's such an unreal moment when you're, like, reading it. It's not like, oh, he got into a car crash, or, the team bus, or just like randomly walking across the street. It's like he was in a helicopter, and when you hear it, it's such a sudden thing. Certain deaths, especially sudden deaths that you're just like not expecting, when you hear it, it's just like, initially it's unbelievable, even if when the facts come in, you see the post, you see all the reports, it still doesn't feel real. Like, even today, it really doesn't quite feel like he's gone, just because of how sudden he, like, passed. And so, like, I'm expecting, like, to show up with some new project or some new, like, business venture. Like, even today, it's a little weird. Kobe, for me, is going to be a little bit different than I think most people. For me, he's really interesting because, like, I was in high school when he showed up in '99. So I was actually in 8th grade when he, like, kind of came on the scene, but he didn't, like, become, like, this cultural personality till, like, I would say, like, 2001. In one of the big things that for me about Kobe was he wasn't the traditional basketball player, especially as a Black man. He wasn't a traditional basketball player. A lot of people have their, kind of like perception of what it means to be a Black person, and one of those things is you have to play basketball. Like, in my neighborhood, every Black kid played basketball. If you didn't play basketball, people are like, "Are you really Black?" kind of thing. But when you talk about someone like Kobe, he also didn't grow up in a traditional, quote unquote, stereotypical way. You know, he grew up in Italy. He like grew up away from like the whole scene. Like it's almost like such a weird. If you like look at that story, it's such a weird way he got to the NBA compared to everybody else. And so one of the things is I remember early on, people question his blackness because he didn't grow up in that traditional way. And one of the things was like he was kind of like Kanye before Kanye became Kanye. And one of the things I remember that was like a big like, oh, he's the real deal. He's the real like he's black. He's one of us. He's the real deal. He's got those skills. Is when he went to Rucker Park in 2002. And I don't know if like all of you know what Rucker Park is, but it's in New York. Especially early 2000s, street ball was huge. And one was huge. Like kids in the streets doing all the basketball tricks. We're all like passing around like VHS tapes back in the day of all these like crazy like basketball moves. And one of the kind of home bases for that was Rucker Park in New York. And in the early 2000s, they don't do it as much anymore, but like occasionally some NBA players would come through and like, you know, be like, oh, you coming here? We're gonna test you. We're gonna test you. And I remember that Kobe went there and, you know, he put it down and like people were like, after that, I didn't hear anyone questioning kind of like who he was as a person, who he was as a black man. It's just like his skills just like made it unquestionable who he was. And he's just, you know, he's Kobe, you know, like he is one of the best basketball players. But that was like one of my initial takeaways of Kobe. But like over time, different things happen. You know, I grew up a Lakers fan just because no one in my family kind of like brought me to a lot of sports games, and no one really explained to me the history of a lot of the sports stuff. So when I was a kid, I actually I had to do a book report, and I did it on Magic Johnson, and I really liked, you know, him, and I liked kind of like the team, and so I became a fan of that, and I also became a fan later on with Celtics. I didn't know about the rivalry, so I've always had that kind of like split where I kind of like had to secretly be like, oh yeah, I love the Celtics, and also the Lakers. So, but he was always, you know, obviously one of my favorite players because, you know, he's Kobe. But one of the bigger things I really found interesting is towards the tail end of his career. A lot of these basketball players, you know, they lose a lot of money. You know, they aren't smart about how they handle their money. Like same thing with NFL players. So many people like lose their money. They're always struggling. And I really liked seeing what Kobe did post basketball because his work dynamic is like, it's hard to describe. Like it is top tier A+ work ethic. But you can't just throw that energy away. If it's energy, you know, energy doesn't get destroyed, it changes. So for him, it was like, you took basketball away. So what's he gonna do with all that energy? And he split it 3 ways. He split it between his family, his business, and his coaching. The coaching thing I didn't know about till really right almost before he died. There was a really funny picture that was floating around, like I want to say like a couple weeks or a month before he died, and it's, you know, he's got all the girls. I think they had just lost a game. He's got like his girls basketball team, and he's got the board up, and the picture's funny because it looks like they are just like looking at calculus, and Kobe is just like 100% Kobe on these girls. And after I learned how much he really loved teaching these girls, and that's why he was like he wasn't your, I don't know, like, I don't want to say average coach, but he wasn't like treating them like they were like kids. He was like, coach. It looked like he was coaching the Lakers, like right there after a loss, because he had the whiteboard out and they're just like their faces. It was a really funny thing, but like learning what the kind of truth behind that is, it's an amazing thing. It's like that part of that energy went there. The other part of the energy that I really thought was like a really cool thing was his different business ventures. Like, did anyone else know he was, involved in animation? Because I didn't know. Like, he won an Academy Award for like an animated movie. And I was just like, wait, what? And it's just like, it's one of those things, like when you have that kind of energy and, creativity comes in so many different ways. And he's clearly a creative person and a multi-level person. That was one of those things that was like a big deal to me. It's like, when you learned, especially after his passing, all the different things he was working on, like, you're like, wow, like it gives you a new perspective on him, but also basketball players. Because sometimes, you have that, even though you might consciously know it, that they're just multi-level people, sometimes like subconsciously you're thinking, oh no, they just know basketball. And like once that is over, it's just like you're not expecting too much. But like he's one of those guys. Like every time you doubt him, he goes above and beyond and be like, no, like look at this, look at these things I'm doing. Like, wow, I don't know. It's just like he's just a wow factor to me whenever you learn something about him.
So many different directions he went into.
Yeah,
like it's more than basketball.
Yeah,
more than basketball, and he hits different. Like you could not like sports, but you could respect what he did off the court, respect all the other things that he did. But no, amazing. Let's head to the. Let's go to the faceless anonymous Eric. Eric, when, where, how, reaction?
Well, when I think I was at my aunt's house when I found out, and I think the way I found out was, Mike, I think you put something in one of the group chats that we were in about like the news that Kobe Bryant had just died in a helicopter crash, and it was like reported by TMZ first, and I was like, Mike, what is this? Don't be like playing games with me. I didn't want to believe it, but then like as time went on, I kept checking what was going on. I found out like, oh man, this is real. Like I was just shocked. I was like, he's really gone, that fast. And Kobe Bryant, since I'm a little bit younger, I didn't really get to notice him until like the end of his career, but I could still kind of like tell like he was such a special athlete in person. Just because he was still pushing himself, at the end of his career, he was still like, he tore his Achilles, he was breaking fingers, but still playing games. This guy, the work ethic, the dedication to the game of basketball was almost unparalleled, except for like Michael Jordan, that type of level of competition. But, just watching clips of this guy when he was younger from like YouTube, it was like clear, you could tell like he was just so hungry to be great. Because when he came into the league, in 1996, this guy, he was good, but he didn't have like a lot of like the natural skills that maybe some other guys had. He didn't have like size he could rely on. He had to work so hard to get to the level that he was at, and he wanted to learn from the best. You could tell because he hung around Michael Jordan a lot, and he was just constantly trying to pick his brain, and just understand what it took to become great. And you could tell, like, I think he used to wake up at like 4 or 5 in the morning almost every day, well before practice would start, and he would just be in there working on the fundamentals, shooting I don't know how many shots per day just to have it down, because he felt like that was so important, and that's really what separated from a lot of the other guys that played the game, because they had the size, and some natural skill, but they weren't willing to put in the work that he did to bring them to that next level. And and he was just the ultimate competitor, really, and he kind of took it personal. I felt like a lot, almost like MJ did, especially like, yeah, he won a lot of championships with Shaq early on, but then once Shaq left, Kobe took it as his personal mission to really like prove everyone wrong. Like, I don't need Shaq to win. I can win on my own because I'm that good, and I trust the work that I've put in to win. So, I just felt like we really did lose a special guy, when he passed away. And even like what Gabe was saying, he took that same mentality and dedication to like the business world after he retired. And he was really working hard. I think he wanted to like make investments, I remember, into like body armor or something to compete with Gatorade. And like you said, he was coaching his girls basketball team. So the man really did have a lot of other passions he was working hard towards after he retired basketball too, which I really respect from him. And I just think that he was almost a once in a lifetime type of person that we had that we lost, and it was really tragic.
All right. Let's go to the office. Keith, when, where, how?
All right. Well, first off, can you guys hear me? Am I coming?
A little louder.
Louder. All right. I don't know if I can make it louder or not. I don't know what's going on with my mic. Still not good. I don't know if what I can do to fix it.
I don't know. You had it good earlier.
Is it plugged in all the way? Sometimes that.
All the way. I don't know what's going on. I haven't used. I haven't messed with it.
Go to your press setting. We'll cut this part out. Press settings on Skype, right? Go to set the three buttons. Press audio and video settings. You see it? Oh, geez.
Have it as microphone. It's not working really.
Is the bar all the way up to 10?
Yep, the bar's up to 10.
Maybe go to your computer setting. What do you have, a Mac or a PC? Unplug your microphone. Just talk through the laptop. That might work better for now. Yeah, then just go back to the settings, audio and video, and make sure it's like set, it's a different microphone. Oh, we're going back to the microphone.
Yep.
What? Say it again.
Hear me?
No, it's like low. Just don't use the mic.
Yeah, don't use the mic. Just talk through the computer. Just make sure on audio and video it's set to something. It's set to like the computer mic or something. Hello?
Just come up to your speaker. I'll do it like this.
Huh?
What?
No, we can't do that.
I can't make it work.
All right.
Come up to your speaker.
I can't. It's not gonna work.
I can't fix it.
All right, all right. Listen. Just plug the mic back in, and then I'll be able to louden your voice. I'll just make your voice louder. You had it earlier. I don't know what happened. It was good before. Just make sure if you go to your settings on the computer, you go to sound and press like input Make sure the volume's all the way up.
I had it.
That's all right. Just talk through the mic, and then I can make it louder in that pot.
All right, can you hear me? Like, this is
Somewhat.
all I can get. Yes.
All right, that's good. It's getting better. It's better.
All right.
Oh, perfect. What'd you do?
All right. I didn't even
Keep
do
it
nothing. I
Keep it
unplugged it and plugged it back in.
All right. That's what we gotta do. All right.
All right.
Let's
Maybe
start
it was. It may be something with the cord where sometimes you might have to jiggle it, like twist it or something.
Maybe I'll jiggle it. All right.
Don't touch it. Okay.
So-
All right.
Yes, sounds good.
All right. Sweet. All right. So
hold on. Let's start fresh. Let's start fresh. Cut that part out. All right. We'll redo it. I said how, when, where. All right. Now go.
All right. So I mean, to start off for Kobe Bryant, I wasn't really into basketball until just a couple of years ago when I really, really got into it. And like his death, it was the same story as my brother. I was at my aunt's house and like you sent it in the group chat. And I first, like you said, it was TMZ. And I was like, oh, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Because like TMZ isn't the most reliable news source. And I saw it, I was like, oh my God, this is like really messed up, And then as the day progressed onwards, like more reliable news sources came out and like confirmed it. But like at first when I found out he died, I was just like shocked, and and it was a tragedy not only for him and his daughter and like for everyone else on that helicopter too. I mean, it was just like such like a gut punch. I can't describe it any other way. It was just such like wow, like this can't be real moment, And I'm not really a huge Lakers fan, but I am a big Celtics fan. And I mean, you can appreciate just like his competitiveness that he brought to the game and everything that he did in life, like you guys talked about. But just going back to like the Celtics and the 2008 finals and 2010 finals and stuff like that. I mean, those are some really great like games, and like that's just like how I picture him, like the ultimate competitor. And just like for the healing process and stuff like that, I just went right back to watching basketball. And like as soon when basketball was back, like just like watching teams, I remember Trae Young, he was Trae Young and Jason Tatum, they were both like mentored by him, so like they live on through him kind of in a sort of way. But like just watching their reactions and just like watching them grieve, that helped me, just like get through that entire thing. It was just a hard time for everyone, And Mike, you and I, way back when, it was a year ago, we used to play, like all that like NBA 2K stuff, and it had an impact on like that community as well. Just on like on Xbox, people playing, and I remember. They had an 8-second violation and a 24-second for the shot clock, and like even people on like video games and stuff were like paying tribute to him by doing stuff like that, like you have 8 seconds to bring up the ball past half court, you get a violation. People were doing that, and they run out the shot clock, for both his 8 and his 24, number. And it was just like such like, I don't know, his death has brought people together. I feel, he was just a larger than life personality. And like just the way he carried himself, it was unreal. I remember, I think I was talking to either you or someone, or I saw something that, being the ultimate competitor, if he guarded him one way in a game, say he went on statistics and he thought he was going to shoot shoot threes, be a jump shot shooter, and you try to take that away from him, he would try and like, he wouldn't try, he would do it. He would be like a drive to the basket scorer for that game. He would always find a way to outcompete you. And we've all heard about the MJ and like the Kobe Bryant, the GOAT, like debate, and he's definitely up there. If I he's in there. It's a close rating. I'm still an MJ guy. But Kobe Bryant is riding his coattails. He's not that far behind. He's just an ultimate competitor. And like you guys said, going into business and everything he did after basketball, he just had his hands in everything. But that's just how kind of like the guy he was. He wanted to learn and continue to grow outside of basketball, and he was very successful, in what he wanted to do. And that's just the stuff that I'm gonna remember him by, being an ultimate competitor, striving to be better, that like he wanted to grow. and that's just the kind of the person I'm going to remember him by. But I just can't believe it, when it happened, and I still can't believe it. But he changed a lot of people's life for the better, on and off the court, and that's all I got to say.
You actually reminded me, because I almost blocked it out. But one of the big things after his death I saw was you're talking about all the tributes. I was seeing so much random, all over my neighborhood, just certain abandoned buildings. You'd see R.I.P. Kobe, R.I.P. Gigi. I was seeing that everywhere around my neighborhood.
It's crazy. And I forget. Yeah, and at the Staples Center when they actually had like an in-person memorial, I forget how many people were there, but you couldn't. It was a sea of people. Yeah. You couldn't even when they zoned, because they zoomed out. They had an aerial shot. You couldn't even see the streets. The place was packed, just to pay respect for him, for Gigi, and for everyone else involved in that helicopter crash. It was just insane, the pour and support of people just everywhere. It was just insane.
I totally forgot. I was actually in Israel around the time he passed. Not the day of, but around that time period, maybe a couple of weeks after or a month after. So in Israel, the big team is actually they have Laker colors, and so even in Israel they were doing tributes. And Amari Stoudemire is on the team over there. So it's there's that connection, obviously, and the NBA connection, but you were seeing people with Kobe jerseys in Israel all over the place, and they're you could get heat pressed jerseys, so they have the colors, and so you got people getting heat pressed Kobe on the jerseys all over the place. He's just a worldwide icon when he passed. And it's crazy to see all the different, remembering all the different tributes. Totally blanked to my mind.
June 17th, 2010. I'll never forget watching the refs give the Lakers that win in Game 7. Don't get me started. I'll never forget. As a 15, I think it was 14, 13, watching the Celtics lose that game.
Test.
Right? No, and Sasha Vucevic. Jerk. Hate that dude. I remember watching Kobe throw up his hands like this and watching him celebrate, throwing the ball up in the air. And I'm like, I hate that dude. I hate him, and I couldn't watch sports for weeks. I was dead. I'm still, to this day, you could not catch me watch a repeat of that series. I can watch that playoff run all the way up to that game. I cannot. I still say if Perkins was in that game, we win. But anyway, on to the point. I hated Kobe Bryant as a Celtics fan. I hated him. I did not like him. He beat us. As a pure Celtics fan, I hated him. That's like LeBron James. The rivalries, everything. You hate that player. I respected his work ethic. I always respected the way he played. There was never a time where I looked at him and said, wow, that dude's a baby. Always complaining to the refs. Always the way he played. I never looked at it and said, I can't stand watching him. LeBron, I used to have those moments. Now it's a little more enjoyable. I think he's changed in that regard. Just a little bit. But when it came to Kobe, I respected him, and I never forget the day. I think it was a Sunday, because it was a Sunday. Because I remember, Keith, we were up at Patriot Place.
Yep.
And it was a weird night, and I had just DJ'd an elementary school, Moses Brown. I just had DJ'd their dance that night with about 150 kids there, and we were having a blast. And it was all the elementary school kids. I'm teaching them dances. We're having a blast. I remember going home that night. I'm like, I don't feel like going out. I don't feel like doing anything. And we still went out. We went up there. And I remember watching the TV and seeing LeBron. That was the night he he passed Kobe on the all-time scoring list or
number 3 over.
Yeah, and I remember seeing him go up to Kobe in Philly on the screen and seeing that. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. And then obviously the night goes on. Next day, got to sit with my father for a little bit. We've been so busy, and we were sitting and just watching TV. And I never just sit and watch TV. Like it has to be like something good. And I'm just sitting there watching, thinking Practical Jokers or something with my father. And a kid in my flag football group that I played in messaged it, and he's like, Kobe Bryant in a helicopter crash. I'm like, what the heck is this? I'm like, this dude's spam. This dude never messages the group. This is definitely spam or something. Click on it, and brings it to TMZ. And like you said, you don't really, believe TMZ 90% of the time. And it says it, and I'm like, Dad, it's saying, Kobe Bryant, died in a plane crash or helicopter crash at first or whatever. 10 minutes goes by. I'm flipping through the channels, NBA TV, ESPN, even 50, anything, MSNBC, Fox, everything. I'm flipping through. Nothing. Complete silence. Nothing. So I'm like, this isn't legit. TMZ comes out with another thing. Kobe Bryant and others in plane crash. Flipping through the screens again. Nothing. They no coverage. Nothing at all. 2:00 hit. ESPN comes on. And I think they had the Pro Bowl. Pro Bowl was on.
Yeah.
It was the Pro Bowl. And they cut through the Pro Bowl and they report the news. And I just remember just staring at the TV. And I'm like, I had no words, because you had all the reports, like you said, Will, of his whole family, the team. I think I even saw something about LeBron being involved, and then Rick Fox. And then it went back to just, Kobe and others for the time being. So I'm sitting there, I'm watching, I see Jay Williams come on, ball in his eye, Stephen A. Smith. They're all talking about him. And all of a sudden it comes out that his daughter was on it. And other kids were on it. And I have the names of the people. And you had, obviously, Kobe and Gianna. You had John, Kerry, and Alyssa Altobelli, young daughter. You had Sarah and Peyton Chester. Peyton was 13 years old. And it's just, and then you had more. You had even Christina Moser, assistant coach for him, and then Ara Zobayan. And you have all these people that were on that helicopter. And when I saw that, when I saw the news about the daughter, I lost it. I just remember sitting there and losing it. I had to go outside, stand on the porch, and I'm like, him in the crash at first, I was shocked. And then hearing the kids that were in there, and the teenagers and the young people that were in there, and that's what got me to that next level. And I was thinking about all the kids that I had just, DJ'd for the night before, and all the kids at the time I was teaching. And it just overwhelmed. And I can tell you, I wasn't the biggest Kobe fan, like I said, but he still had that impact. And I remember just sitting there and not moving. I didn't move for about 6 hours. Just sat on the couch, stared at the TV. The Celtics were on that night. I think they were playing New Orleans, and Tatum wasn't playing and all that stuff. And I didn't move for 6 hours and eat, didn't do anything. And it was such an overwhelming feeling. And it was just, and all the reports kept coming out or whatever. And one of the things I thought about was, it was like, this helicopter crash and all that stuff. And you look back at it a year later, and it was such a or whatever the word is, a foretelling, I don't know, a pre-telling of the year to come, because after that, we get hit with COVID, and the world changes dynamically. And that makes me think back to, it's going to be 20 years in August. 20 years in August, and it's her birthday today. But I thought back, and I'm like, it reminded me of Aaliyah, of her crash, her helicopter crash. Now, she didn't even get to enter her prime of her thing, and this is a whole different conversation. But it made me think, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, helicopter, private plane, and thinking all these thoughts. And when she had passed, I was only like 4 at the time. You know what happened 2 weeks later? 9/11. 9/11 happened 2 weeks later. Kobe passes away. A month and a half later, not even, COVID happens. And the whole world changed after those two people left. And it's sad, it's frustrating, but like you said, you never know what can happen. And a lot of lives were lost that day, and it affected everyone, whether you're a Lakers fan, whether you're a Celtics fan, whether you were you all remember when where you were when Michael Jackson died. You all remember those, and Kobe. I hope you're okay, Will. Kobe is on that list. Kobe is on that list as one of the most influential people in the whole world, and in culture. And I couldn't. Again, I was watching that Celtics game, and it was just like so. Like, I wasn't getting excited. It was a close game. I wasn't getting excited. I couldn't. I know they aired his final game 2 days later, and it's like I couldn't watch that. I could not do it. I couldn't. Come Monday, I had to keep all sports off. There was nothing I didn't want to hear about anything. Nothing at all. I didn't care about Tom Brady leaving at the time. It was nothing. I couldn't watch. And it definitely has that effect. And even sitting here thinking, it's like, it feels so much longer than a year. And it brings me back to that day just sitting on the couch and wanting to do nothing. And his impact on the world, his impact on other things but basketball. I mean, he was in TV when he was first out. His Dear Basketball poem, which we're going to share in the video, which I didn't even know. He did a book. I think he was working on a book or something. And I remember watching the funeral or the procession they had at Staples Center, and just the people, and it was just surreal. Like, again, it was another moment where I just sat there just looking at the camera. And then you have Shaq come up, and that was one of the greatest lines I've ever heard in my life, when he said, I forgot what the situation was. He's like, we're a team. There's no I in team. But then he goes there, but there's an I in win, mother effer.
Yeah.
That was the best line I ever heard.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I could see Kobe definitely saying that. And it just, it made me think back to the Celtics Lakers days, and Garnett versus Kobe, Pierce versus Kobe. And it was definitely sad. I wish I was into it more when they were in their prime to watch. You'll all look back, like, there's parts of me that miss the Miami days, even though they beat the Celtics. But when they had LeBron and Wade, and those were such good teams, in San Antonio, and you had Kobe with Shaq, and the dynamic duo that was, and is devastating for sure to see all the lives that he impacted. Nothing was even when Rick Fox was on the TNT special, and they had him talk, and this dude is involved supposedly in the crash, and hearing what he had to say, and Shaq, and just seeing the raw emotion. It was a day, definitely, as a sports fan, but as a person, and I think everyone felt that way, that you'll never forget. And it was just such a pre-telling of the future and what the rest of the year comes at. For a moment, you're thinking about COVID, and you're like, wow, I didn't realize Kobe left us 2 months ago. And it's sad, and he continues to inspire people, and he will continue to inspire people forever, just like MJ did, just like Prince, and just like a lot of other people. They'll continue to inspire people forever. My question is to you guys, and I don't know if you want to open this up for a little quick discussion, but what do you feel? And I can admit for certain people, like for example, Prince. When Prince died, I started actually getting into him after he died, and realizing who he was and everything like that. And now I'm a huge fan. Do you find that a lot of people have kind of gotten into Kobe more since he's died? And just in general with people, like, what's your thoughts on that with people, celebrities, high profile stars who pass either tragically too soon or whatever? Do you find people are getting into them more?
I
Um,
feel like,
I,
sorry, yeah, I feel like with me, like when Kobe died, I never like my son was 8 at the time, and he died on Sunday, and like he was doing the martial arts, and I told him, you didn't have to take your belt test on Tuesday, and I know you probably can't see it, but he came with his board, and he wrote for Kobe, and I told him you don't have to, you don't have to, and he was like, you always say Kobe mentality is no matter what, and he went, he did his belt test, and he passed it. And that's what I think people aren't finding out about Kobe, like the stuff that he did off the court, like even as far as like his relationship with his father. Like his father was a professional basketball player, but Kobe never wanted to be known as, Joe Jelly Bean Bryant's son. He wanted to be known as Gigi's father. He wanted to be known as all the accolades off the court. And you see, even the number one pick in the WNBA draft, Sabrina Olescu, he made women WNBA basketball popular again. Well, popular, period. When he started wearing the orange hoodie, that orange hoodie is one of the most popular sales right now in NBA store because Kobe started wearing a WNBA hoodie. Well, his impact on the WNBA is because of Kobe Bryant. If people are watching, even what's going on with the LA Dream, is because of what Kobe Bryant's impact on girls basketball. He's making girls basketball more popular than it's ever been. And like I was talking to somebody who was telling me he's a diehard Kobe fan, but he didn't realize he wasn't even drafted by the Lakers. So
Charlotte.
oh yeah.
You got people going back and like learning the real history. Just because you still have certain people that they'll say stuff on social media for clickbait, like Michael Whitlock, who was saying that he's never a legend because what happened in Colorado. So you always want to. So now you have more and more people looking up Kobe's legacy to defend him, and that's what happens like so much. Even I never remember hearing LeBron has the show The Shop, and he had Chadwick on there, and Chadwick was talking about how he talked to Kobe at the Oscars, and Chadwick was saying how you'll be great. I want to take me. We got to work together, do a movie. And Kobe said, "Give me 2 years, I'll be a billionaire, and we'll make a movie." And then we lose them both. But Chadwick said he sat down and talked to Kobe, and the way that he was pick his brain, he had everything mapped out 2 years in advance because he said he didn't want to do nothing till his daughter was done into high school and he could pass it to the next coach. So he had everything strategically planned, and that's just his mindset was like thinking down the road. And you just look at the basketball. I mean, you're a Tatum guy. You see the stuff that Tatum's doing. You see the stuff that a lot of these guys that the way they're training more, and that's all because of him. Like all the off the court stuff, you don't see it no more. Like the rap videos and the crazy like flaunting your money. He made it popular to invest long term. Kobe Bryant made it popular to have stuff off the court. Like LeBron just left Coke for Pepsi. You would have never thought that, but he wanted to put stakes in his company, and that's something that Kobe was one of the first to do. Curry with a sneaker deal. So I mean, people are seeing what Kobe did, and they're taking a lot of what he did and adding it into their life. And it's not just the skill sets, but it's the mentality, the Mamba way.
Yeah, I think we all learned a lot about the different relationships because Kobe, we get, I think, as like kind of the mainstream audience, we get certain pictures in our heads because we feel like social media or ESPN connects us on a certain level, and so we feel like we understand people a certain way, and then we talk to each other, sharing all these infos, and I think when he passed away, it really showed that we didn't know anything about him as a person. Like at the funeral, how many posts did people see about Michael Jordan? Learning how connected Michael and Kobe were. That Kobe was like calling him constantly, like having these hour-long, whatever, multiple long conversations where Kobe's picking Michael's brain. Like, in our head, there was like a rivalry, and like they're like competing for the GOAT status, and like we learned so much at that funeral and after, and just like it shifts your brain on so many levels. In my head, is that we create these scenarios and conflicts that they may eat it up a little bit just to get their name out there, but in general, like we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And learning all these different aspects of Kobe, I definitely saw more people kind of being influenced by him. They were influenced by him on the tail end of his career, but they were also influenced by him, by his passing, and just like focusing more on these different things and passions that people might have. And just like, instead of maybe putting, 5% or 10% of their energy in there, they put way more emphasis on trying to get to these goals, these different goals that, how do you get to these things? And it's just kind of like that Mamba mentality, like that's been a phrase for a while, but it exploded. It's just like, you want to reach this goal, you got to put it all in. You can't just be half in, half out. And like, I was trying to look up the picture of the whiteboard that I saw, but I couldn't find it, and I'm wondering. I couldn't find it, but I found the other picture. It's the where he's with the girls, and they had gotten 4th place in a tournament, and he's like breaking down the picture. Because that was also a picture that like people had like made fun of because they looked so unhappy in the picture, but he's so proud of these girls, and just like he's breaking down the different like members of the team, like who's the original members and who's kind of add-ins. And one of the comments he made was, there's this one girl that wasn't there because she was at a dance recital. And he like kind of, that Kobe sly way. He's like, it shows you where her mentality at the time was. But it's like, and these are like little girls. So I think they were in 7th grade. Maybe, I think that's when he started coaching that specific team, was like around 7th grade. And so like, I remember that comment like floating around, like, oh, he's throwing shade at these girls. And he's like, in retrospect now, I'm like, no. He's trying to impart that Mamba mentality on like so early onto these girls, because when you start that with kids early, all it's going to do is blossom and grow. And so like if you start them young, they're going to like carry that, and it's just only going to succeed. No one's going to fail from putting that energy into these goals that you want. You're only going to fail if you don't put the energy. And it's just like another thing that he's just like, he has these seeds. He's got these children, all these children. Like you were talking about Tatum. I didn't know. I kind of knew. I feel like I didn't quite understand how connected Tatum and Kobe were until the passing, and you start seeing those highlight videos. Just like Kobe was influenced by MJ. You see in like the different mannerisms that in the beginning that Kobe stole from MJ. You see, it's a little bit different because it was like a direct mentorship between Tatum and Kobe, but you see those highlight videos and like the mannerisms, like they're overlapping them. Like you're seeing the different shots they take the exact same way. You copy the best. You make it your own, but you copy the best. Because why make it harder on yourself when someone's already been there and done the work? You just like take that, take that influence, take that mannerisms. If that's what Kobe did and it got him to the goal, take that. And it's just like, it's really dope to see those kinds of things.
Absolutely. His definitely his growth on people, and just like on YouTube, I'll never forget, like a month later, because I meditate and a video about Kobe Bryant on meditation pops up. And I'm like, why didn't I see this a year ago when it was posted? Why didn't these things come out? And his legacy, like I said, is way beyond basketball. And I never forget too, and Eric, our residential Last Dance expert, I remember, I don't know if it was episode 3 or 4, where they had him come on. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, whoa. Like, this is so different. Like, this is like, and it was only a 2-minute excerpt, which I was kind of actually bummed out about. Like, I thought they were really going to, like, dive into more about him and MJ's relationship. And instead, they gave you a 2-minute clip of Kobe sitting there talking about it. And then it was it. It was over. And it was so, not to use the word weird, but so just like.
Surreal, maybe?
Surreal, yeah. So surreal just to see him sitting there talking. And it was David Stern too was on there, and they both had passed. And I'm like, it's just so surreal. Like, it was so different. And that was an issue I had with that episode, is they didn't go dive more into that relationship, which I think there probably is a lot more to dive into with that relationship. But I just remember it being so surreal seeing him. And just the way he talked. He was so intelligent with his words. Like everything he said, he had like that energy, that aura around him where it was like, you believed it. He could tell you that the world was flat like Kyrie, and the difference between him and Kyrie is you believe Kobe. Kyrie, you just think he's a nutcase. But Kobe, it's like he'll tell you something and you could believe it. He had a conviction and authority with everything he said, everything he did. And you know, you brought up a great point. I think it was Will or Gabe. Like you didn't see him leave the team. I think it was what 05, but like it was around when they faced off the Celtics and Lakers 07. And I think it was those 2 years where they were kind of, you know, they made the playoffs. They weren't going to win. And I think Detroit had offered
Chicago.
Detroit. I think Detroit offered their whole starting lineup for Kobe. It was like Hamilton and Tayshaun Prince, all of them for Kobe. And I think it was Chicago too. And, you know, he could have left. He could have told the Lakers, I want out. And he didn't, and he battled through. And you don't see that loyalty. The only person I could think of is Dirk. Dirk stayed. But that's and Tim Duncan. Sorry, Tim Duncan was so long ago. It was like, but you just don't see that loyalty, and that's what makes, you know, a guy like Giannis signs the max with the Bucks, and that loyalty you just don't see. And Kobe kept that loyalty. Kobe, so you can't even say that about Garnett. Garnett left Minnesota, and I love Kevin Garnett. He's my favorite player. Kobe had that loyalty, kind of like all those stars back then with the Bird and you know, Magic and MJ, and MJ could have easily went and teamed up somewhere else if he wanted to. It's so different now, and I think Kobe's loyalty to the game and to just his hard work set him apart.
I think the other thing too that's huge is the fact that, you know, why do we like grieve the loss of these celebrities that we never know personally? We'll never, you know, we've never met personally, but I think for Kobe, especially, and this is the case for other celebrities that we really grieve when there's a loss, and especially a tragic loss, is the fact that we realize that they have been such a constant in our lives. Like I had said, we can think about different periods in time and what was going on in our life and how we felt either brought up by them or even could see some of ourselves in them or aspired to be something like them. And I think that's what's so huge about it. Like when I had more recently even looked up things about Kobe and things that I didn't know, it's just like, I think I was just so inspired by the platform that he really took advantage of, like in terms of being a celebrity and what he did with that, because I think sometimes that goes to waste. And it's very self-serving. And it showed that Kobe was there to promote so much in terms of obviously being a father and aspiring to bring the NBA to more of a focus and as a real sport, not like a secondary sport that women are doing, but also realizing that he was going to invest in his daughter and the sport in terms of making it more equitable and hopefully a better place for his daughters as well as women in general being taken seriously as athletes, which we know has not always been the case. But some of the things that I saw is even like when he was younger, he asked Brandy, the artist Brandy, to go with him to the prom. And like just thinking about like, we can all relate. Like if we became, celebrities, like, what would we do? Like things like, you think about it, like you're starting off so young, like just things like, what would we think of? What would we do? Potentially, would that give us some confidence that we wouldn't have had otherwise? Who would we potentially reach out to? And one of the other things that I saw is like when he first met Michael Jordan, they were saying like that was such a different interaction than most people had when they met Michael Jordan, because he had initially said, hey, by the way, like, I could beat you on the court, right? And it was just like one of those things that people just laughed about because it was like, wow, like this guy has confidence, but also probably tried to be very unique in his own way. Not necessarily that I would take that as being cocky or arrogant, but also probably made him laugh and probably, was something that was memorable. So I think, again, it's just tying that connection. And I can remember from years now, like, again, not being one that's a huge sports enthusiast, but remember Kobe Bryant as always being in the NBA as long as, I could possibly remember on the scene as of the late 90s. And, people would call him Kobe Bryant, slam dunk giant. So it was just one of those things that you could just remember hearing, and you just never really lost that. So I feel like he was someone that, again, he could have been a soccer player. They said because he grew up in Italy, he was an awesome soccer player, and there was a potential that he could have been a professional there. He also was set to release his own rap album and was creative in that component. And then we also know that later on when he leaves basketball, he writes and for his retirement, he writes the poem Dear Basketball. So I just think, like, in terms of just being such a multifaceted, well-rounded person, someone that just strives for so many different things and not just for himself, well beyond that, I think that's huge. And I think I see him as someone that's just a global unifier. And I think that's the other thing that we really like is just capturing that energy. It didn't seem like he was trying to exclude people, but actually bring people in and use himself as a catalyst to really show that people can do a lot of different things. You don't have to be just one trick pony in the sense of being a basketball player, which is huge, but you can be creative in your own way. You can be your own person. And I think that that's something that, we all sort of aspire to. And I think that's why we grieve that loss. And then realizing when we do experience a loss like that with celebrities, that we will never see what they could have become. And I think that definitely is even with his daughter, it's like someone that had so much potential and opportunity. We'll never be able to see anything new from them. We never see what would be next on the horizon. And I think that's part of just grieving the whole process. And just as tragic as it is, I mean, none of us can even imagine how they passed away. I mean, it just had to be such a horrible situation. But again, just knowing that there was so much that they still both had yet in the horizons, I think is just such a sad situation. And that's why we continue to try to draw from some of what he did and who we want to be and who he was and how did he become that person and how do we strive to be better people.
Random fact, do you know that Kobe Bryant rapped on a Brian McKnight song?
Thug Poet.
What'd you say?
I should know that.
I didn't know
that was Thug Poet.
Thug Poet.
Because again, love Brian McKnight. I'm surprised
after
I
he
didn't know
passed, that video popped up, and I'm like, why didn't I see this? Why didn't I see this before? And yep.
Rossi, you mentioned something about meditation. Can you tell me more? I don't know anything about that. Like he made meditation tape or something?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm not gonna sit there and sit here and say I watch it because I can't. It's just it's too like watching him talk, like it's just like so surreal, and I haven't been able to sit and watch it. It's like a 10-minute clip, and it's popped up a couple times, but it was just I know
just like one video, or did he
it
do
was
like a series?
it was one video, and it even popped up my Instagram too. I forgot what channel it was, but it was literally Kobe Bryant on the power of meditation.
Okay.
And it was like a 10, and again I couldn't watch it, and just it's just so surreal, and still takes time for to get into those things yet. But yeah, and it was like I would have watched this. I wish I had seen this. And that brings up my point. It's like ever since that's happened, I've found myself to be more appreciative of who's here now, who's here right now, who's doing stuff on this earth. I'm going to appreciate right now what LeBron James is doing on that basketball court. I'm going to appreciate right now what, either Justin Timberlake is doing in music or movies, or what Will Smith is bringing to the table and all the things that they're doing, what Stevie Wonder and Paul McCartney are still doing here, and appreciating them more than looking back and saying, I missed them when they were alive. Like, I don't want to be like that. And with every person, with friendships, really, and I've tried, and no one's perfect, but that was kind of like, and then COVID happens, and it's like becoming so appreciative now of who's here right now, and who's really doing that magic, because the saying is, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. Why can't I miss you while you're here? Why can't I miss you now? Why can't we embrace what Kobe was doing now during his life? Why did we have to wait? Why did I have to wait to embrace how amazing and musical genius Prince was during his time? Why couldn't I embrace that? I can sit there and say I embraced Michael Jackson. I was a big fan as a 6-year-old. I embraced that. And it was it was easier for me to get back into him and really respect him and continue doing those things. Why can't we embrace the people here? Why can't we still look at Stevie Wonder? And I watched him during they did a COVID special, and that dude was singing like he was 28 years old. And it was like, this dude is amazing. And then I got his album on the wall, and I started listening to it again, and I'm like, the songs that he did and talked about years ago. And even Paul McCartney, like these legends are still here. Elton John, whoever else you want to talk about, all these legends. Will Smith, a big one, with the Fresh Prince special and how they tributed James Avery and Uncle Phil. And it was like, why can't we embrace people now? And I think we're definitely embracing Kobe, and his legacy will live on. But I think the one thing that I took away from it is being appreciative of the people now in your life. So you miss them now. Miss them while they're here, not when they're gone. Miss them when they're here, and then continue to build and learn from them.
Yeah, it's an expectation, because
it's hard to do.
It's we're not built in that sense to do these kinds of things, and it's mostly because we have an expectation. Like Kobe passed away so suddenly. Like it took a long time for a lot of people to really process that he's gone, because we expect them to be there. Another one, we expected him to be there for a while. Michael Jackson. Once you hit a certain age, it's like it's less of that, and it's like you start to see a little bit more of those appreciative stuff. Also, we don't truly understand everybody all the time. Maybe they're a little more private, so we might not appreciate so much of them till they're passed away, and we learn all these other aspects that we wish we knew. Like, we wish they shared it more, and we might have, more appreciative early on, but we just didn't know. Like, so much of Kobe, I learned closer to his death, and I really respected a lot of those different aspects. Even like, we also have, when you learn about all these other things later on, it changes how we think about them. Like, for me, when I think about Kobe, I'm an artist. I do drawings, graphic design, whatever. Kobe's an artist, but he's not an artist in the traditional sense. Mm-hmm. he's creative, but when you think about him, you're not going to think a creative person. You're when you hear creative, you're thinking, he's not doing paintings, but what he did in business and all the things that he was interested in, he did to, like, as weird as it sounds, a black belt degree. Like he did it to he learned all these things that interested him, and he succeeded in it, and he was an artist in it, like learning about meditation and poems, and he was working on an animated feature. And you have to be creative to make these things work. And artists generally aren't thought of as business people, mainly because we have the left side of our brain, right side of our brain. One side is generally thought of as the artist side. The other side is generally thought of as like the analytical business side. It's rarely do we think about them mixing together. You usually have one person does one thing, the other person's on your team, and he does the other thing, and you all come together. But Kobe was one of those people that, like, there's an artistry to what he did with his mama mentality and his business acumen, where you're like, that's a true artist. And I think a lot of people would have shifted how they perceived people like him if we just knew more. Sometimes I understand why they're private about certain things, but I wish I knew more of these things really early on. Like, had I known he was like trying to do all these things, maybe in like high school or college, and like that may have, changed how I may have approached different things and, succeeded and processed different aspects of my life. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there, but like, it's tough to be appreciative when you're alive when we don't know the whole story.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, it's knowing the story and then also listening to the story and actually, thinking about what they're doing. You can know about it all you want, but if you're not seeing those things, like if you knew all that stuff but then took no action, you're like, yeah, okay. And then you realize that years later, like I think there's some sort of action there too. And I completely agree with you. And like I said, I think the thing is just appreciativeness for me. That's my biggest takeaway from him. All right, if you had one word, just one word to describe how you. Oh, we got the co-host of the Dab podcast here. What's up? What's up, buddy?
Go Kobe.
Yeah.
Did he call me a dumb cookie?
He said, "Go Colby."
Oh, I thought he called me a cookie.
That's like eating a cookie.
Is that a Girl Scout cookie?
Nah, Pokemon.
A Pokemon cookie.
Oh, there you go.
Look at the camera.
And that's a plug for the new Dab podcast premiering today at 2:00. It's actually premiere right now. But yeah, if you had one word to describe something that you learned from just his passing away, what's one word you would say? I know for me it's appreciative or appreciation.
Father.
Anyone can go. It's a free for all.
I don't care, but I said my word would be father.
Father. Keith, what'd you say? Your mic's going again.
Yeah, I know. I said that's a loaded question. That's a hard thing.
Loaded? Okay. All right,
Yeah,
Gabe.
loaded question because there's so much to him.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. There's so many words to describe what happened. But
I was going to say my word would be dynamic, since he was such a dynamic person that just kept changing and reinventing and inspiring. Dynamic.
Eric,
Yeah.
anything from you?
I'll just say he was a competitor for sure in every aspect of his life.
He'd be competitive on a sinking podcast. Like he'd try to like if Keith said something that was intelligent and amazing, which he doesn't do. But I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'll cut you right out. But like if Keith said something intelligent, like he tried to like come back and be even more intelligent because that's how competitive he was. But he'd also listen to you as well. And I think Kobe just showed me, let's appreciate wild people I hear, and let's appreciate and value what they do. Like, you know, for me, I've been very appreciative of the genius of Justin Bieber's early music. Like I've become more fanatic of Justin Bieber, and to be like I'm appreciative of his earlier music, you know. And but that's a joke, even though it's not a joke. It's the truth. But you know, that's definitely the main takeaway. Well,
for me, hold on, before you shut it down. Creative. That's definitely something that's like kind of been floating through my brain. Obviously, like, you know, girl dad and the passion, but creativity comes in different forms, and we can all have that creative energy, and it doesn't have to be specifically just drawing something or painting or, like, you know, music. It's one of those things that like really sticks out, is like creativity comes out in so many different ways that we just have to like kind of change how we think about what it means to be a creative person.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that's gonna wrap it up here on our Kobe discussion. 1 year, January 26th, already a year, and I mean, we could continue going on just about his legacy and a lot of, you know, celebrities and people's legacies, and it's definitely a conversation. And next year we'll be having different things that we might have learned about him, or 5 years later it'll be a different thing that we learned about him. And I think it was a great discussion, and thank you guys for coming on and sharing your reactions. And I'd like to have you all on again, maybe soon again for a podcast. I don't know. You guys don't do your own podcast, do you?
Oh, yeah.
I think we do. We got the Dad podcast. It's becoming viral. We got the co-host Will and Little Will, and we got Meet Up with MeLa over there.
Yep.
New episode coming out later this week. We have Anime Talk with Gabe. That'll be getting released soon. I'm telling you, we're doing it. We're doing it, Gabe. We got Stories with Rick. That'll be daily stories from the world of his life. That will be happening soon.
The stools we had before, what was that?
Oh, the soft stools of the week.
Yeah,
with
soft
Keith.
stools.
Yeah, soft stools of the week with Keith. Yeah. But anyway, we want to thank you guys. You can check out all of our pages, the MJR Podcast Family on Facebook. You can check out Meet Up with MeLa, the Dab Podcast, the emojis. You can check out Junior's predictions every single week on the wild card and the divisional round playoffs, and Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff. Thank you guys very much, and we will talk soon. Like, comment, and subscribe. Catch us on Spotify, and word to Big Bird.